PDF and that. So that is the recommendation on Google's classroom. It's PDF documents. I like that you can do like YouTube videos and everything. It's got a lot of great features. So it's a good college try it. If nothing else, it helps you get organized. Yeah.
All right. How's everyone doing this fine afternoon? All right. Anyone here ready for a nap? Yeah. Don't worry, but I'm gonna keep you awake. So before we get started, I want to see a show of hands of who went to my session this morning on teaching the gamers. Awesome! You guys are troopers. You're gonna in for another hour of hell. I'm sorry. No, actually, that was my mascot INTJ coming out. So this session this morning gave a really awesome talk on teaching the gamers and ask around. It was fun to give. So a lot of the stuff that I talked about this morning kind of piggybacks into what we're doing with the math, because what we're doing is trying to take gamification principles and make it an education so that whatever they're trying to learn is addicting. So I actually want to also see who here has attended any of my sessions in the past. All right, you came back. Bad memory, isn't it? Okay. No, so I've been speaking at SRAB on various topics in technology for about 8 years now, I think, or maybe 7. I lost track. But I really love teaching people about my knowledge and my expertise and my crazy ideas at the same time. So thank you very much. All right. So who are math teachers in here? Raise your hand. All right. All right, so for the rest of you, supervisors, any supervisors, math supervisors, curriculum coordinators, okay, principals, okay, cool, and I guess superintendents or likewise, okay, cool. All right, so we got like mostly math teachers and some administrators who are really curious about what we're doing here. So, where'd my mouse go? Oh, there it is. All right, so to get started here with our wonderful presentation, so this presentation we're going to be going over a lot of the results of what we've been doing for the past year and a half of this math fluency project, and going into to some of the research and science that we've done, and a lot of new stuff that we've discovered since we've got it into 25 schools. So, oops, why is it clicking on that? Okay, so moving forward. How do we go from kids counting on their fingers, where if you ask them what's 5 plus 4, and in our first test class, none of them could say 9 without going to their fingers, and some of them can't even do that, to something like this. Oh. So, actually, I'm going to stop that so I can zoom in so that everyone can see this better. Let's do it this way. Whoa. So here he is answering some math problems. He has 1 minute to answer as many problems as he can. And he's getting everyone correct, and he's solving for X. He's been in this environment for 80 days doing a 1 minute exercise for 15 minutes, so he gets in around 10 to 12 rounds in that 15-minute time period. Isn't that crazy? You can't even read it. Exactly. And he started not being able to do 5 plus 4.
Wonderful. 262 correct. Great, good job. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. High five. Yeah.
So he takes a lot of pride in what he does. So this is an example, and I guess the question is how do we motivate these kids to do that in less than 80 days? Here's another video that.
There you go. Right on.
establishing process and 253.
Okay, let's do it.
So 20 days later, here he is hitting the word problem bank, and you can see he's going at speed. So I'm just going to jump ahead here. So look at that. He's getting all these correct, and wow. So these kids are leveling up through 750 levels of the math process, and everything that we've done up till now has prepared him for the word bank problem. And when he hit it, we thought he was going to slow down. But when he actually did, he slowed down a little bit, but then he picked right back up as his brain adjusted. Oh, there he got one wrong. Oops. Okay, so that's that. So the reason why we were able to get that level of fluency is like, well, as we all know, in order to get good at anything, you have to practice, right? Practice, practice, practice. So what we do, we drill them on flashcards, we drill them on math tables, but they don't respond to that, right? They get bored, they get disengaged, and you can't do more than 20 without them like passing out. But we were able to get kids on average between 500 to 1,000, and that kid you saw there does anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 a day. So that is the motivational environment that we were able to create to get them to do that. So, John, my name is Nai Wang, and I founded a education technology company that gamifies education. And John Hubenthal is right there, and he is the ideas behind what made all this come together. He came up with the scientific research behind it, so we're going to be talking about that a lot. So if you went to the gaming sessions, it's a lot of fun. This is more research. Oh, okay, yeah, that's going to be fun too. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. So for those of you who've been to attend my session, you'll get a little bit of repeat. So basically, I grew up having disadvantages in life, as everyone does. First off, I was made in Taiwan. Yeah, laugh, please. You know, this is a fun time. Afternoon, I want you to make sure you're staying awake. Yeah, and you know, because I was made in Taiwan, my parents immigrated here to the United States, and English was my second language, so which gave me huge reading problems. I would read a novel or a book, and it would just go in one eye and miraculously go out the other. But what actually was happening was because my brain wasn't really accustomed to that, I was using so much cognitive load in my reading the words that I didn't have any left to process it. So I was reading it and just going nowhere. And it made it really difficult for me in school, especially high school. I went to high school and didn't finish a single novel. Great Gatsby, thanks for Cliff Notes. ADHD, I had a problem with that little deal. And anybody know any kids with that problem? Just a couple? It doesn't exist anymore? It's cured? All right. No, so I had that problem. I had a lot of energy, but my parents had to deal with it because I failed in math because I couldn't pay attention in that class. The teacher was going so slow that I just disengaged and fell asleep. And that's funny because, hey, look at me. What am I? Yes, I'm Asian, Chinese. The stereotype is true. Like, we're really good at math, except for me. That's all. And it's not because I didn't know it. It's because the teacher wasn't going at the pace that my brain wanted it to be. But so because we're poor and we had and I had these problems, I had to deal with this problem naturally, not chemically, which to me is the best thing that ever happened to me, because this ADHD you see as a problem. But I had to cope with it, my parents had to cope with it, I had to learn to live with it, and then turn it into my superpower. Yes, so now, thankfully with this ability, I have the ability to do more things and see more things and comprehend more things than my peers, because I never learned to singularly focus, I've always learned to multi-focus. And because of that, I can take on information at a much faster rate, people say multitasking is a myth. Well, it is for most people, but for people who have brains like mine, it actually does work because I can subconsciously know things without even knowing it. And it's just crazy to think about it. Which led me to video games, programming, culinary arts, and then math. Because I thought, hey, I'll make a game, but then one of my friends said, hey, you went to a restaurant, let's build a training product together and get into education. I'm like, sure, why not? 20 years later, oops. So anyway, so I'd like to show this video. This is a video where we live in a generation of instant gratification.
We're going to stick this in here, and then I'm going to pour in the milk. I hope this works because I didn't bring a change of pants.
Look, I Googled it. It's a fake picture. That's it. Milk cake for you. Anyone else want to get a milk cake cook?
She's just kidding, boys and girls. Everyone gets paid.
Oh, I love the Big Bang Theory. Any other fans in here? Yes? Okay. Then the rest of you suck. Okay. So basically, I love that video because it just illustrates what the kids are used to. And they always have the information at their fingertips. They've never known a world where they can go over here and ask Siri, hey Siri, how's the weather today? Or I guess I didn't tell to Siri the right way. And then it's just going to say hot and impressive. But they always had that in their pocket. They never had to deal with the difficulties of what we had to deal with, which is we had to go and actually ask a parent or a guardian or an adult for some information, or I had to go to a library and use the card catalog system and then get paper cuts from it. Ouch. Or even use microfiche. Oh gosh. Talk about ancient. So now these kids are expecting this, which. In brief, I have a much longer discussion about this, but really the entertainment that we had as children really affects how we really expect information when we're growing up. So on my left here we have cartoon characters. So when your parents or yourself, when your parents said, hey, go sit down and stay still, go watch TV, you're watching these cartoon characters. So you fall into love with these characters like Mickey Mouse, the Smurfs, or even Felix the Cat for some of you. And you're learning that, this is my entertainment, this is how I stay still. So when you go into a classroom, you're sitting in those nice deep rows, factory education is at its prime, and then the teacher's talking at you, you're like, this makes sense. I could get this because that's how I was when I was growing up as a kid, as a child, so this is how I was trained to take on information passively and quietly. But then video games came out and completely changed the entire landscape of education, because now instead of sitting there passively watching a television show, now you're moving these characters around and manipulating the entertainment now. So you play with these characters, you fall in love with them. Anybody know anyone a Mario fan here? Mario, yay! Mario was actually worldwide a better known character than Mickey Mouse, if you can believe that, because of the video game. So what happened is, you fall in love with these characters, you become emotionally invested in them, and then you learn that is my form of entertainment. That's how I make decisions on how I want to go through the level. And then you get to class, you sit in those nice factory rows of education, and then the teacher's talking to you like, hey, I grew up making choices, decisions. I want to go through this level 5 times, but I can only go through it once because I have to pay attention to this teacher, because they say, if you don't listen to me right now and they write down every single word I say, then I'm never going to say it ever again, so this is your one chance. Anybody know anybody like that? So basically then they become disconnected because they have no control with their avatar, their environment, and making decisions and choices, like how many times they go through. So that's a very brief version of what I talk about, but really, does that all make sense to you, how I explained it? But so basically what's going on is our kids are being trained in a way to take on information. First with television, now with video games, and the next big thing, smartphones and instant technology. So gamification in education is the future. It has to be incorporated in all parts of your lessons and everything like that, because the kids are being programmed that way. If you give them something that doesn't fit that model, then it just doesn't work. So if you ever did programming in Fortran, which is using those paper punch cards, and you put it in a machine that doesn't accept it, it won't take the information. That's a really old coding joke. No one got it, right? Whew. Oh, cool. So anyway, so leading on to the next segue of how I met John. It was actually a serendipity. You know, on a plane leaving ACD from Nashville, I sat next to someone he knew who said, you have to talk to this guy. And I sat there on the plane ride. It was 2.5 hours. It really felt like 15 minutes. And he told me about some crazy idea that he had. It was a very simple idea, right, John?
Well, it seems simple. But it wasn't so simple. It actually involved over 30 years worth of research. And I had started on the education committee of the Arizona legislature, and I had a scientific bent to my mind, and I thought, well, one thing you should do when you're getting education is you should do as much as you can to have a profound knowledge. So I started digging through research journals, and I grew up on the south side of Tucson. The highest crime, highest poverty zip code in Tucson, which is the Southwest City, was where I went to school. And so these were my brothers and sisters, and these were the students that I wanted to rescue. And so I started focusing more and more on motivation. And guess what motivation deals with? It really deals with gamification. That's what Nai was talking about, is how young children become so motivated in these different environments. Yeah. So what we boiled it down to was 9 key scientific principles that we had extracted from these research journals, of which when we went and looked at the latest summaries of research, we didn't see these 9 principles coming out in that regard. The one thing that was absolutely key that we came across was, we called it the team score. And when you look back at the team score historically, the human brain was designed to operate around the team score, the ultimate team score. When we, as a hunting party, went out, if we were successful, we ate steak. If we didn't, we starved, the ultimate team score. And our whole human brain revolved around that concept of a real-time team score when you're in the process of the hunt. When you hunted alone, pretty much, we weren't designed to do that as human beings. We were designed to operate in a team. And cooperation is a part of our DNA. And so when we talked about that, was a central design element. Now, so that central design element, we create that by projecting the screen. And it's a little bit washed out up here, but in this screen that projects up on the front board, you see 3 of the 9 principles operating right here. And we'll cover those in a minute. But the other concept, another scientific principle, was the concept of culture. I'm not just simply sitting here to develop these skills. Math becomes a part of my identity. When I think of myself, I'm thinking about my mathematical skills. It becomes a part of how I think about myself all the time during the day. I'm somebody who's good at math. So let's go back to this scoreboard that's projected on the front of the class, and you're going to see 3 of the scientific principles here. Number 1, this block up here is that real-time team score. And the computer keeps careful track of the abilities of the team, which is the class, and says to them, you guys can do 25,652 points today. We know that's an achievable goal. And it starts out blank, and then it starts slowly going across in colors, but simultaneously it's also saying to this student right here, your share of that is 1,625 points, and then it's looked very carefully and for this student here, your share is 200. Now, that objective setting process is critical, because the reason that people don't like leaderboards in education is it results in some students being belittled. And what happens with this board is exactly the opposite. What you find is these students take tremendous pride in having done what they can achieve for the team and getting to that blue bar. This blue coloring system and managing by objectives is critical, that each one is expected to produce according to their ability. And boy, there's a tremendous amount of joy and emotions that you want in the classroom when they hit the class goal and hit their personal goal. Now, there's another scientific principle operating here too, and that's when they did an enormous amount of research on digital environments, they found out that 10% of the students going into these environments didn't do a single math problem. And they did one in California that extended 4 months. 10% of the kids that went in there for 4 months didn't do a single math problem over the entire 4 months. That doesn't happen in this environment. So what you see here is Andrew didn't get much sleep last night. And so he's a little bit of a laggard today. So in my math lab, I would just simply walk over to Andrew, drop down to a knee, and say, okay, Andrew, show me what you can do. And that's all it ever took to get Andrew going and get him. I'd watch him for a game or two, and then I'd walk over to Sally and say to Sally, show me what you can do. And they took a lot of pride in being able to move out. And you find out quite often that a fair number of your students, if you're in at-risk environments, they had rough nights the night before. And so they just need a little bit of encouragement to hit their goals. But we found...
What about Alzon? She's always done really well. Why is she red? Oh, did she hit something difficult?
Yeah, and occasionally it would come, I call them the X minus problems. 99% of the problems, the students, the way the problems are set up, another scientific principle is when they're doing these problems and they're getting good at these problems, the next problems are right here, and they can figure them out completely by themselves. But there were some occasional minor exceptions, the X minus problems. X minus 4 equals 2. Quite often the students would say 2, and you would have to just go through it and say, okay, work it out. 6 minus 4 equals 2, not 2 minus 4 equals 2. And so you do a little bit of work with them in that. So I call it managing the tail. But what happens as you go in there every day and you set up a habit of these students going to be working on this for the first 15 minutes every day at 8 o'clock, is a math culture emerges. In culture, in order to understand why Verani is able to do 1,000 math problems a day, culture is critically important. They have a habit. They're going to come in there every day at 8. They're going to be up on that leaderboard. And Durrani, he would do math for 24 hours straight before he's going to let anybody else rise above him on the leaderboard.
So when we were putting these in schools and researching the behavior, this is one of the most unusual, I wouldn't say unusual, surprising behaviors we saw come out of this class. So you always say, gosh, the leaderboard, what about the kid at the bottom? Are they just gonna cry? Am I gonna get calls from my parents because their self-esteem is being affected? And we all have that fear, right? But in all of our test cases, we haven't seen that yet, and this is why. This kid here is the last one not in blue. As you see here, the other kids who have finished, now they're gathering around him, and now they're cheering him on. And then, I'm just gonna fast forward a little bit here. So they started helping him out, calling out the problems for his last round. So he's just he's almost to the finish line here. And then, let's see here. Okay, so he finishes that. Waiting for the leaderboard update. So, yeah. Let's go ahead and scroll to, oh, come on, get over there. There we go. That's what we call the power of blue. That has transformed the culture in the classroom. It is unbelievable to see. Just kind of give you a little history. We only had one classroom in January, and then brought into 5 in February, March, and then 20 in April, May. And this is all brand new observation. For us, every single school we go to, it's like, whoa, what happened here, right? I mean, it's mind-blowing. I mean, with the high school implementations, you did not even believe that would happen, right?
Yeah, when we got into a high school, I thought, I never even put it in our mind that we would even dream of going into high school, but we went into high school and they accepted it readily, and it was an alternative high school. But as I was watching the students, we were in there after about 3 weeks, and these students, 3 classes, had done 105,000 math problems in about 3.5 weeks. And we were talking to the kids, and one of the kids said, well, it's better than doing work. So I thought, okay,
Yeah, it's funny.
we did it. Okay, so it's working for high school kids too. But my observation watching them, none of them were on their fingers. They were doing it in their minds. And I thought, every one of these kids is as smart as me with my education degree. All that happened to them in their education careers is they got disengaged. If we catch these kids as freshmen in high school and we get them in a habit of working on this 740 layer, we can have every one of these kids up to calculus by the time they're seniors in high school, by just simply getting them to practice and go through and polish those skills that they missed on the way through school. So, and the other thing that's important to know is that most memories that we take on are stored chemically. And as a result, they just dissipate over the following 3 weeks after we first pick them up. What happens in this environment, we call it that power of glue, the beacon of learning, is those memories, that signal to the brain about this whole culture and environment, plus this color coding, is to store permanent memories.
So let's talk about the affluent kids.
You know, the affluent kids get these signals about this permanent memory formation and academic achievement from a lot of different angles. But what we've created now is something for students from poverty, minority students who may not be getting these signals from their environment. So we've created an environment now that we can pick those students up and give them as powerful or more powerful of a signal, because I'll tell you, as powerful as signals are from family, peer groups are even more powerful. So that peer pressure can be incredibly powerful. So that's what we've been able to do by creating this environment. That team score, group accountability, and individual success, putting that all together and is a very powerful mechanism, combined with a ladder that goes down and picks up every child. So another scientific principle.
You're jumping ahead.
Okay. Okay. So this is one of the high school students here.
You completely forget that you're even doing math. But honestly, like once you get in there and you just get going, you completely forget that you're even doing math. It's honestly just really fun. And the whole class looks forward to it every day. We beg our teacher, we're like, oh, let us do it. Like,
Yeah. So here, now talk about the success.
Okay. So another scientific principle, this guy Terry Scott down in Kentucky done an enormous amount of research, and he found that students, the failure zone for a student is when they're experiencing 3 successes for every 1 failure. That's at the borderline. So what we do with the software keeps the students in the 4 successes to every 1 failure, all the way up to 9 successes for every 1 failure. So that is a critical piece of the whole motivation package too. We find that a lot of our students, when we work with them, they've never had a much success in their entire academic career.
Yeah, now I'm going to talk about forward black pressure. So from the programming standpoint, we programmed like these different mechanisms that that give them challenge. So basically, like let's say they're level 20, 50% of the questions come from the level 20 item bank. So they're getting the exposure from that, and the item bank is around 200 to 300 questions. So it's like very vast. But then we also have forward pressure, which is 20% coming from the next level to slowly introduce that concept to them, so that when they level up, they'll be prepared for it. And then back pressure is 30% from something they've already mastered. So now they're doing something that they're good at, they've already done. So now they're just like kind of moving that, and they can only level up when they master that core item bank, which is like fluency, which is like accuracy and speed. So then when they level up, they go, oh, this is hard. Oh, this is too hard. And then we'll level them back down to that level again. And then basically it's like a lot of up and down motion until they get it in and they start to take off again. So it's a lot. So that forward back pressure is really important, because like it's what keeps them in the success zone. So the other thing is like we already talked about real time, because and we only put that there because the teacher can react to these kids in real time, so you're not having to pull reports after the fact, at the end of the day, at the end of the week. And that's one of the cool things is like, you see what's going on with these kids in real time.
And this concept of surfing, when we started watching these children, we quickly realized that most of the time, students in an academic setting, they're swimming. And let me tell you, swimming is a whole lot harder than surfing. So it is the power of that wave that's just carrying these students forward. When a student says it's better than doing work, well, you don't have to do any work when you're surfing. It's the power of the wave that's just carrying you. But when you're swimming, it's a lot of work. So that's the difference.
So this is actually a really telling video. So she's not stupid, but.
Probably 3/4 of them did not know math have time to do that, but they can do any of them. If they know basic math acquisition, subtraction, they're not going to do multiplication, they're not going to do addition, so they struggle all the way through. Then they're excited about it, it'll get them to their math back quickly as a first class, and the way it's wonderful, so she goes there and I can see them just getting them.
This teacher here was at a middle school, and what she's describing, Nai beefed up the soundtrack and the students took over, but what she's describing is that she had a student who simply could not experience any success at all, and that's just how he described himself, I'm stupid. And what the software does is the software comes down and picks those children up. We had 2 students who scored 0 on their AC merit, but this software went down and picked that student up, and he started experiencing success, and he was off and running. And for her, it was a life transformative experience because she feels for these students like you can't believe. She gives them her heart and soul, and for her, it gave them the chance to save that student. Now, when they do scans in the brain, what they show is that when a student first takes on a task, it has a glucose consumption pattern that's very large, typically a little bit larger than a quarter. And then after a student does that task, and this isn't just a student, this is really any task in life, when a student does that task hundreds and thousands of times, that same task all of a sudden only takes a few neurons to be able to execute. This is critically important because when we go to teach students fractions, they have to have a lot of automaticity in subtraction, addition, multiplication, and division in order to have enough free cognitive resources to do fractions. If they're still doing the basic math facts on their fingers, they can't do fractions. So we call this pinpoint learning, and it's a critical part of our whole system, motivating students to do enough practice so that they've got these basic functions down to a pinpoint in their brains.
Aha, that's why I couldn't read. My brain was overtaxed. And it's very true. And actually, our next project, once we finish this math one, is literacy. Ooh, imagine that. I wish I had that when I was a kid. So what we're doing is by creating this the single, the practice, what we're doing is instead of chemical memory, we're creating new axons and dendrites in the brain. So it's actually a physical change in the brain that we actually like the way you say it, how Durrani's been rewired, right?
Yeah. Well, Durrani, when he was doing those math problems, I'll tell you, it's mystifying to me because I can't read them. I only get them about 2/3 read, and he's already read it, solved it, and put the answer in. And the only thing that I can think of is he's rewired every neuron from his eyeballs to his fingertips to be able to pull that off. Because it really is amazing, the speed at which he can go. It defies, it almost defies reality to see that speed. Our laboratory class that we developed this in came out of the highest crime and highest poverty zip code in Arizona, in South Phoenix. And none of our students, when we asked them what's 5 + 4, could say 9. And when they started the 4th grade, they were 3 years below the 4th grade standard, which means that the most amazing teacher in the world would not be able to get these kids up to standards, because the very upper end of a teacher's ability has been well defined in the research, and it's about 1 3/4 to at most 2 academic years. So these students are students that really need rescuing.
And this slide's awesome because last year was the very first time we presented like our idea. Like, you know, we had one kind of test class and we're like, hey, this is our idea, this is the research behind it, does anyone want to join the pilot? And fortunately, we actually picked up 3 schools from this conference who actually became really huge cheerleaders. So like, you know, when now we're coming back full circle, this is our first time presenting our new findings from this current year. So basically the past 5 months, you know, we did a closed alpha where, well, basically anybody who said, I want to do this, we say, yeah, please, go ahead. So it's really not that closed, but, but yeah, we say, well, actually with the high school teachers that contacted us, we're like, are you sure? Because in our minds, we didn't think high schoolers would take to that environment. We would think that it would not work, but what were we proven wrong? And then we also did some kindergartners and pre-K kids were like, oh no, they're not gonna be able to, oh, they can. And in fact, you had one kid who did 300 math problems in a day, but we had a much easier level for them, so number recognition, counting, and things like that. And after they'd done some successes, they actually moved on into like, you know, basic addition and subtraction at 3 and 4 years old. Whoa! I mean, so we're going into very uncharted territory now. So that's our what we call the extreme lab class. So, you know, we started in Phoenix. We have schools in LA, school in Texas, and in Idaho. So that Idaho connection came from high schools at work. So we had teachers who attended here. They said, "Ooh, it's good," and then they started telling everyone else, "Thank you." So Maggie was the first one from high schools at work. She's a high school principal at Welcome High Academy, an alternative high school. She tested it with 20 students. And the first remark she says, like, you know, some of them say it makes them feel like they're in elementary school, but they really need to practice. And throughout the process, they actually did well. This guy here is also in Idaho, and he actually, you know, was telling me like, oh, I don't think it's going to work.
Heard my talk last summer in Nashville, high schools at work, national convention. I was fairly skeptical at first. I liked his program. I liked the game theory that was behind it. It seemed like a little bit like a glorified 50 a minute. And for my students and for my personal philosophy, that didn't really fit super well. And I was like, all right, let's give it a try. My friend had some good success, so let's give it a shot. The first week was incredible. It was awesome. The kids jumped in. Again, I rolled this out school-wide. We do about a 15 to 20 minute lesson at the beginning of the day, or whenever the teachers want to work it in. The game theory behind it was awesome. The kids dug it. The kids loved the leaderboard. That first week was pretty incredible as far as the competitions that were going, the class cooperation. I tied an incentive to it. The team with the class with the most points per student, the most average points per student, got a 30-minute early release on Friday. We're really getting into it. I had a bunch of kids that were working on their own time. Anytime they had a free moment, they were working on math, on their math skills outside of class. I mean, what more kids you want as a teacher to have students working on mathematics outside of class. It was cool. So it was cool to see that game theory stuff that was behind it, the leaderboard and the immediate feedback and all of those things really hit home. It builds a lot of competition and cooperation between the class. Competition between classes was pretty awesome. I saw some students that would go through a game with other students that were struggling and help them out in the cooperation. And we want to get everybody in the room, we want to get everybody there, we want to get everybody to meet their goals so we can meet the class goal. It was
Yeah, I brought the speaker there because I've seen the audio lag, so maybe it's because it's so far away. But anyway, yeah, I mean, so this is a teacher who actually took our program and he said, can I do this? I'm like, are you sure? And he said, oh, can I do this as well? Do it with 14 teachers. So he said, okay, I'm gonna do it with all but 14 teachers across the entire campus. At 9 a.m., everyone's gonna do this game for 15 minutes. And what he did was he created class battles. I'm like, oh, wow, that's creative. So he did this thing, which is like, oh, and he put this up in the cafeteria, and every day he updated it So these are teachers' names, not student names, and here's the number of kids they had, the total number of points, and the average per student. So that, like he was saying, like, you know, whoever had the highest average that week got off 30 minutes early, and boy, did that create some fierce competition. So this is the last updated 5/22. I think that's close to the last days of school towards the end. So that was like some really creative thinking, and we get some creative ideas that these teachers in the classroom say, hey, can I try it this way? I'm like, never thought of that, give it a shot. Or, hey, can you build this tool? And we go, oh, that's a great idea, we'll have it done in a week. So it's actually pretty cool because we love responding to ideas and thoughts, and then and if it doesn't work, then we like to say oopsies and then move on. So this is
So in the last month, we've been beta testing the KP Compass Math Fluency program and trying it in a high school setting with an entire class. And some of the biggest things we've touched on, other than the group collective goaling, the individual goaling, the slightly competitive nature of it that built them up, is just how much more awake, how much more alert, how much more focused they've become in the classroom right at the start of the day. Their bell work has become fun. The kids aren't even calling it work, they're calling it a game. So they're really enjoying the experience.
So yeah, thanks John for walking into my shot there. Yeah, I mean we just take these videos impromptu, so it's not like professional. But like, you know, all these people are like, well, are testing this for free because like we're looking for data, we're looking for like ideas and things like that. So Stephen here, like, you know, he had some, like, you know, we got the quote that's better than work. He had 7 periods, so he had a huge load. So he taught maths for 7 periods. And he says, like, you know, projects bring math fluency to students in a fun, easy way, most importantly, effective way. So the best thing is, like, we hear from the students themselves, and because I like it when they talk about flow and getting them prepared, you know, they say it the best themselves.
Found out that it kind of tripped up my basic math skills, and I was like missing on kind of some stuff that I should already know, but it's been great, like having that flow in the mornings and kind of just like get my brain flowing. So it's just really nice that we have that tool.
But honestly, like once you get in there and you just get going, you completely forget that you're even doing math. It's honestly just really fun. And the whole class looks for our teacher.
Math skills in multiple ways by reassuring me that I can do it and giving me the confidence that I can do it, and just giving the touch up and the brushes on the basic level stuff that I missed when I wasn't paying attention.
It's kind of fun, to be honest, and you can see like your accomplishments. Like I think that's the best part about it is like you make your own goals and you try and reach them. It's just for somebody to want to feel accomplished, and it gives you that really good feeling of satisfaction. So I really
It really keeps your math precision like on point, and it's overall just a really good program, really good warm up.
I think it's really awesome because we work as a team and we try to like compete with each other, and we have like class parties that we meet our goals, and I think that should be implemented in other schools because you don't really see kids really working as a team when they should be in a classroom, so I think that's really awesome.
I feel like it's a great warm-up that we do every single morning. It helps us get our brains going.
Like warm-ups or whatever, and it helps a lot because if you do that right before you go in, it's like having to do some algebra stuff. Like it just completely like starts your mind for you and gets you ready for doing whatever you need to do in your class. Like, and then it's just like it's a really good exercise like when you're studying your math, and it's so much fun too because like you have certain goals you're supposed to achieve, and like it really makes you feel like you're achieving something when you do it.
How you say, if you want to get better at what you were lacking, then it's just putting in the work. It's all about it. It's all about just putting in the work. I'm fine with it because I do lack on those skills in this program.
KP Compass is super tight. Like I think it's really tight.
Yeah, so this is the high school group that we tested, and you were surprised at all that because he wasn't there.
Yeah, I just never even dreamed that we would be able to penetrate in high school. But what we're finding is there's an enormous number, there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of students who get to high school and they can't do 17 minus 9. And they need a product like this to be able to bring them up. And when I observed them, I thought these kids can do calculus. It's just a question of them putting in the practice over their 4 years of their high school career. We can get them there.
Yeah. So if you're interested in becoming one of our exclusive, non-exclusive pilot schools, you know, we have this flyer here. You know, if you put your email down, we're going to email you this presentation, and say, hey, please join the fund. It's free because we're looking for data. You know, everyone's like, how much does it cost? Well, nothing.
We've started up a number of these schools new, and I'll tell you, it's the most awesome experience that you can imagine. You will remember it for the rest of your life. When we started a school up in Compton, one of the most difficult school districts in the nation, the students that day did more than 5,000 math problems correctly. When we started up 2 schools in South LA, again, very tough neighborhoods, the students in those 2 classes, a little bit smaller than the Compton class, both did over 3,000 problems correct. And it's not just the fact of the volume of math they did, but the emotional attitudes that they were bringing to the table. You go, wow, this is everything we dreamed of. So we'd love to have you as partners and to give you this experience too. So if you would have an interest, let us know.
We still have more slides, but we're going to reserve 15 more. We have 15 minutes for questions, but we're going to go over boring data stuff now. All right, data, academic game, yay. So basically what we saw here was 3 students who got 4 years of academic gain. Our average was here at 44. And are we supposed to go till 3:15 or 3 o'clock? I thought it was 3:15.
3:15.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, I was just making sure. I guess that's why I built the timing for. But anyway, so here we go. And then and this is important because we see here that, our average was at 44, but in a typical school setting, the average is, in that type of situation, you see a regression in ability. So, all right, so that's it for data, yay. But we have more if you want to see more data, but we have a lot of cool stuff. But yeah, we're looking for more teachers, more schools, more successes, and we want to really revolutionize the world with what we're doing here, because this is highly experimental, but awesomely rewarding thing that we're seeing.
Very easy to set up. It's a username and a password and a code. When we set up the school in South LA, they said, we're excited, come on over, and we set it up in less than 40 minutes from start to finish. So it's not a great deal of imposition, and you get to see the experience. And we are glad to, even if you say, well, I'm only going to test it for 1 hour, and we're glad to do it because we're convinced that you'll like what you see.
Yeah, also questions. I know everyone has a million questions in your mind. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I know that you guys have seen an improvement through the program. Do you guys have any data on the improvement from any other type of assessment, whether it's teacher-made test or benchmark, just to show that it translates outside of the program?
Oh, yeah.
So that was the graph that we went quickly by there.
So, yeah, I didn't really do a good job of explaining it. Okay, yeah, I know, I'm terrible. You explain it, because you're the dad.
The statewide test in Arizona is the AZ Merit, and what the AZ Merit shows is 25 points a game for the average student from the end of 3rd grade till the end of 8th grade, and we came in at 44 points. So not quite double the average for the state, but more critically, we showed 4 years worth of gain for 3 of our students. And we believe that with the right kind of environment, that we'll be able to produce that for every single student. Now, that's just a belief, but we also have the practice volumes to back that up. So we haven't given this a full run yet, every single day for a year, but with that's where we think we can come in. We can come in with some really great numbers for our average student.
Oh yeah, and this thing is like, right now we call it Math Fluency Project, but we're going to be calling it like Fluency. Isn't that cute? Yeah, so.
That INT is putting the intelligence in math fluency.
Yeah, so any other questions? Yeah. Oh, any other questions?
You only do it 10 minutes a day?
15.
15 minutes a day?
15 minutes a day.
So you do that for each class then, instead you don't have to do it all one time, or every day, is that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can do it. You set up each class that it's operating in is set up as a team, and they have their team score. The only thing that's critical is that you have the same students every day, so they develop that cultural aspect of it. They have a sense that we're a team, we're tackling this together. What we don't advise is any kind of mixing of students and pullouts and that type of thing. It really, it works best when a whole class is doing it and they do it every day together. That concept of together, we're a team, we're hitting this team score, and is just critical for the power of this to develop.
The timing
So the question is, does the timing work the same? And yes, the students, they did it in high school, they did it at the same time every day. So these things we're just observing are really important, that the students know we're going to do this at 8 o'clock every day. They come in, they sit down, they know, you got to log in, you got to get going. And that gives it its maximum power.
Okay, so on computational skills, but my question would be analytical. Are there any forms based on that with regards to higher level mathematics?
So the question is what about the higher level mathematics? So there are 740 levels, and you saw a little bit, even at some of the early levels, we're bringing in verbal aspects of real-world math problems. So Durrani was doing real-world math problems, having to apply addition and subtraction to single-step word problems. If you get all the way up to the top, you are solidly college and career ready. When they slice off the top 30% of the high school students, these are the skills they find: fractions, ratios, decimals, percentages. They know those as solidly, and they find a smattering of algebra and geometry, just a smattering. So that puts you in the top 30%. You will be better than that if you get it to level 40 or 740 in our ladder of skills.
So to access this, once you get sequence by the sciences, I'm going to be here for a minute the rest of this week. And I want to actually access this to see it in motion. What would one have to do?
So to access this, if you just let us know that you're interested in becoming a pilot, and getting more information, we can set you up with a teacher account, and you can actually sit down as though you're a student, and you can do this yourself and work through the math and get a feeling for yourself. And you can quickly learn how to put a student into the system, and you could watch them too.
So I can do that while I'm here this week.
Oh, while you're here? Sure, why not? We have a booth where we talk about this project downstairs, right by the SREB booth. So if you want to, we can set you up anytime today or tomorrow, or afterwards, like after 3. I mean, we're not doing anything, right? I mean, schedule.
Yeah, they literally could set you up with an account so you could get a sense of it.
It'll take me 30 seconds to set you up. And then another 2 minutes to train you.
Question right here.
There's 750 levels, and your head-up says everyone starts at level 1. So the high school students will start at the same place, the second graders start at the same place, and the fourth graders start at what group you're starting with, they start at level 1.
Now, so the question is, what level, how does it work? What's the difference between second graders and high schools? And we've had them all start at the same level, and they very quickly go ching, 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 depending on their skills, because as soon as they show that they can do a problem level, and even though they may know these skills already, any mathematics that you do, you're reinforcing circuits in the brain, but they will climb right up to that ladder until they hit the skill set that they don't know, and some of them express a lot of surprise. Wow, I thought I knew all this, but now I'm finding out that I don't. And they'll polish that a little bit, and then they'll start working their way up again.
Yeah, just like when you saw the high school students that were in that video, they all started at add within 5, add within 10, subtract within 5, subtract within 10, make 10s. So they did that. And that's why we thought the high schoolers would be like, this is stupid. I'm going to go play Pokemon or something. But it didn't happen. They liked it, they loved it, they got into it, and that's why we were surprised, because we underestimated their desire, or we underestimated the gaming leaderboard. We didn't think it was powerful enough to get these kids engaged. In fact, I have a group of 35-year-old adults this week and next week and the next 3 weeks testing it out in a college situation. I think that's going to burn and fail, but hey, I don't know. But so far, so good. They did 2 rounds, and then they're going to do another one this Saturday. So, for me, the way I see it is it's like any video game. You all start at level 1. You can't jump to level 20. So I'm an experienced gamer. I can get to level 20 in 3 hours. It's going to take you 10 hours to get there, right? So that's the way you look at it. is like, experienced players will be able to get up faster, whereas some novice players may take longer, or they might like hit a second win and they go, oh yeah, I get this now. Something clicks and they can level up faster. So
in terms of the goal setting for each individual student, that's done after several iterations of gameplay, right? Because you don't know me until I've done.
So the question is how does the goal setting work when they first start? And so what the goal setting does is there is a minimum goal for every student. So they come in and boom, there's 200 points as their goal.
50.
Well, we changed it to 50 because we started working with the preschool students this summer. So we just found out that 50 points work better. So we put in 50. So that first time their goal is 50. But what we find is, boy, kids get so excited when they get to that 50 real quickly and it zips on across and you think they would quit. None of them quit. They keep powering ahead and the computer keeps track. And so some students power on it forward to 1,000, other students power on forward to 500. And so it says, okay, you got to 500, your goal this time is not 50, now it's going to be 400. So next time they come in, it kept track of everything they did and it gives them new goals. So it keeps track of what they're doing and sets new goals for them.
Yeah, so that's the algorithm, and I'm constantly tweaking the algorithm to make, to like, we're watching the behaviors, how everyone's doing it, and reading the data, and basically, but we're trying to, find the proper point, and the goalpost is 15 minutes. Now, when you hit the goal button, that's what it calculates. It calculates every student and it calculates the whole class. But you could also have manual control and say, okay, I have a 10-minute session, so I'm going to drop the goal from 50,000 to 30,000. So you could do that. Or you say, I want to do a marathon, let's do 100,000. and things like that. So in addition to that, like one teacher said, you set milestone goals. Like when we make 500,000 points or 500,000 points, we're going to have a pizza party. We make 1,000,000 points, then we're going to have like early dismissal or whatever carrot you want dangle in front of their head. So these incentives actually do help a lot as well. So our auto goal is like really designed to fit every student as they're performing. So in addition to that, our levels, like as they're leveling up, the harder questions will get them more points too. So the higher level kids may have to do 30,000 points or something like that, but they're doing harder questions and they're earning more points as they're doing that as well. So any other questions? Yes. All right. Awesome.
Sorry. Does it spiral back? So let's say I struggle with a skill, right, and then finally I achieve it. But then does it spiral back for me and revisit that skill?
We have basically it's a 4-step back pressure. Back pressure, forward pressure. So one forward pressure, one main level, 2 back pressures. So the back pressures was the spiraling portion that you're talking about. Yeah. So yes. Any other questions? So what do you think about this little project that we're doing? You like it? Oh, you had a question? Oh, you liked it? Yay! So what are your thoughts and opinions on what's about mathematics fluency? This is something that we all need to do, and just looking for comments about your situation or anything like that, if we want to say anything. Yes, sir, ma'am.
So I teach 9th grade repeaters, the population that have failed 9th grade, and one of the big things that we find is they weren't ready for algebra, like their minds weren't ready, and because a lot of them lack fundamental skills. So I am definitely interested. I'll be stopping by to see you, just trying to get the okay for my district before I set myself up.
Yeah, actually that's a good point. So with what we're doing with the pilots, so far, we do get good district approval, but a lot of teachers don't do it or don't need to, because what they're doing is they're throwing a game into the classroom. So it's not like you're adopting curriculum. It's not like you're adopting a standard or anything like that. You're just playing a game. You say, hey, we're doing Prodigy or doing like IXI or whatever those millions of math games that are out there. My gosh, there's so many. So, oh yes, the yellow flowers are right there. Thank you. Yeah, and they're a dime a dozen, and we feel like we've cracked the code and found something very unique and new that will really revolutionize the kids' abilities. So we're hoping and keeping our fingers crossed that this will make a big difference. And we need your help, to make it happen. All right. Yes.
Do you have an app, or would you develop an app?
Oh, okay. Do we have an app, or will we develop an app? No and no. The reason why is because it's web-based, so you just go to the browser, hit the button, log in, and then basically that makes it so you don't have to download anything. No app, it's called web app. People don't do that because it's so much harder to code web apps than apps. So when you do a web app, you have a universal appeal. So Android, Windows Phone, Blackberries, if they exist anymore, anything can log in and do it. So that's one of the beauties of it. You can use PlayStations or Xboxes, but gosh, it's going to be hard to hit those. Well, actually, they do have keyboards now, so it's doable on PlayStation and Xboxes. So bring your Xbox to math class now. So any other questions? All right. Well, hey, y'all, thank you so much. I mean, this is like, our second time presenting it, and we've done some crazy things.
Just based on some comments there, if you sign up for a pilot, that pilot will stay free to you as long as you desire. So it's not just 4 weeks free. It's free for you want to keep doing it, you get to keep doing it.
And if we just email you, we can sign up.
Yes. Yeah.
So I can do that today, starting on.
If you want to, yeah. Go right ahead.
It doesn't. Are you here tomorrow too? Today. You are for now?
And what are you doing tonight?
We've been waiting.
Yeah, I think very
No, oh, I think there was Adam Barr. There's a lot of chairs around there. Perfect.
Especially for math. We have get to see and so they even before we got the issue, I just I'm very excited to do it. Like I'm starting to just very successful. That's one thing. You know what I mean? I mean, that's what kids that are supposed to have it. So I would take kids out of the academy and take them to success. They might not have passed outright, but then it's about. In the Ohio issue, I'm excited to I'm also a so I do that a lot of ways. This year we're starting with intervention classes specifically targeting incoming and graders. Though I am really those sorts of well, so that we can work on the
There isn't a session in here next, is there?
Yes.
Oh, there is?